Hi, welcome to another Retronaut video. So in this video, we're just going to take a very quick look at the PC Explorer web app. It's a free to use web app. We'll show the URL in this video. And what it has on it is a number of different PCBs for the Amiga. You can tell by the name, can't you? It's pretty obvious what it does. It has a number of PCBs for the Amiga, and it allows you to interact with those. And it allows you to select pads and then to see where different traces go to on the motherboard. It's extremely, extremely useful. If you have any sort of Amiga that has a problem and you want to diagnose what the problem is with it, then this website is very, very useful. It's not the only solution out there. And in fact, it does have a couple of holes in it because it doesn't support right now the Amiga 2000 or the Amiga 3000 PCB. So that's a bit of a problem. There is another piece of software, I think, called Sprint Viewer, which you can get the files for an Amiga 2000. So that's actually what I used to fix mine. But when it came to my Amiga 4000, which we're going to look at next, when I was fixing it, this particular web app came in really, really useful. So yeah, let's have a quick look at how that works. Okay, so this is Amiga PCB Explorer. You can see up here, amigapcb.org. It's such a useful tool when you're trying to repair your Amiga. Going through the schematics, unless you have some kind of electronics training, is probably a bit of a tall order, but this tool really allows you to focus in on what the problem is. Obviously, you need to have some kind of understanding of electronics, and you can pick that up as you go along by watching other videos. Otherwise, you know, it's still all going to be gobbledygook. But this tool does allow you to diagnose things as long as you use a bit of logic and you ever think about it and try and work things out. So it has a number of models. You can see over here, it's still actually maintained 2023. And there's a donate button, so definitely worth donating some money if you use this. You have a set of different PCBs up here that you can look at. Unfortunately, and I don't know why, maybe the author will get around to this one day, but there is no A2000 and there is no Amiga 3000 logic board, which is a bit of a bummer really, because the A2000 was quite a big seller, I think. I'm not sure about the A3000, but anyway, I was lucky, and the A4000 boards are here. It's got the Rev 2, which seems to be an early production revision. That's what it says here. And then you've got the most common one, the one I have, which is great. So you just click on that and you just wait for that to load up. So the first thing I would say about it is that I'm not a big fan of the default color, which is green. Obviously that's realistic. That's actually the color that the boards are made in. But you can go over to settings, and I'm not really sure why this is over here. There's plenty of room up here actually. It'd be nice if he could move the colors, maybe to a few different color swatches up here. But anyway, I don't like the green color. I like green, don't get me wrong. But the problem is I find it interrupts, it sort of gets in the way of you actually seeing the diagnostic colors that you're working with. So this is the Explorer. You can scroll up and down. Sadly, you can't scroll left and right. And it would be really nice if you could use the middle mouse button to scroll back and forth and up and down, but you can't. It would also be quite nice if you could like double click and that would zoom in on an area. But again, you can't. But anyway, let's look at what we can do. You can turn off different layers. That's actually really useful. So the silk screen is actually the white markings that are printed on the board that show you where all the components are. We'll turn that off. And now you're left with the solder mask. Turn that off. Then you've got the copper. Turn that off and you basically got pretty much nothing. Except for the internal. I think these are the internal wires. So if you have a look here, you see it says inner layers. So you can turn off the power. Doesn't seem to do anything on this one, and inner layers does. Don't know if you can see that. Just pop that back and forth a few times so you can see that more clearly. Obviously, the silk screen is super important. It has the markings for each major component, and it also has the names of them as well. So for instance, down here, this is the memory area of the A4000, and you can see here U891. If you've ever looked at any videos about fixing an Amiga 4000, that is a famous chip. It's this chip here. Let's turn on the solder mask. Now you can see the pads where the chip is actually soldered on. And then if we turn on the copper, you can see all the different traces as they go around the board, going from the different pads and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, you can't see the bottom of the board here, but you can toggle it to the bottom view here. And the other thing is, when you select pads and it shows the traces, it will actually show how a trace goes from the top to the bottom and vice versa across the board. So don't worry, you will be able to work out where things go to. So to do that, there are two different methods. Number one is by hovering, and you'll see it's highlighting here in yellow, and it's saying that U891 pin 19, and it's the buffer, I'm not sure what that is, some kind of buffer maybe, signal. And you can see it doesn't actually show you in this mode where it goes, but you can see it's popped out there to the right. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the yellow traces going across there, and then it just seems to disappear. So if we click on it, then you'll see it actually changes the color. Unfortunately, I quite like the yellow. I mean, it would be nice if the first one was yellow, but it just goes to a random set of colors. And this is why now, you can see now why I changed from having a green PCB. It's because it's quite hard actually to see, for instance, if you've got a green trace against a green PCB, whereas black works as a much better background actually, I find most of the time. You can see now that the trace goes from the pin on the chip, and then it gets soldered onto the pad here. And then the pad goes over here to a via, which is actually underneath the chip. And then the via is on then the underside of the board, and that's shown with a dotted line to show it's underneath. And you can see it traces over here, goes through a via, comes back up onto the top of the board, then goes back underneath, goes down here, comes back up again, and goes into pin 19 here on this chip. So this chip, and this chip, they're all actually the same type of chip. So you can see that they're all connected together on pin 19. You see pin 19, pin 19, and pin 19. And then if you go back to here, you'll see there's a branch where a via goes underneath, and then it goes over here up to this chip here, which is U860, which doesn't actually exist. It was never soldered onto the board, at least it's not on mine. But anyway, it's connected to this pad, and then it goes up here and then back under, and then it connects here to pin 1, the buff end chip on, I think it's the Ramsey chip, this, if we hold here. Yeah, see, it's the IC, it's called Ramsey. Or U890, a little bit less romantic in the name there, but this is the Ramsey chip. And you can imagine with a name like Ramsey that it's obviously quite an important chip in terms of the RAM of the system. And obviously that was a problem with my machine. So that's one trace. You can actually select multiple traces. So if we click here, a few more, you can see you have various traces going across the board. And there's one other mode I'll show you, which is opacity. So if we turn on transparent, now it actually makes the solder mask and other elements transparent. And you can see that really helps you to see the traces. So this is a pretty cool mode as well, if you can take the lack of contrast. Obviously on a bright summer's day, if you've got a very bright environment, this might not work. But if you're in a dark environment, it's almost like a kind of dark theme for this particular tool. Let's go back to opaque. There you go. So yeah, you can see now, obviously it's a lot easier to see all the different silk screen markings and so on. What else can you do with the tool? Oh yeah, obviously you can zoom in, and that's actually quite useful sometimes. There we go. Zoom in and scroll down. I'm assuming that this was made using SVGs because of the clarity of the traces on here. SVGs are a fantastic technology in web. I'm a big fan of them. Been out for years and years and years, but still relatively underused really. But the big advantage is, like, you could zoom in on this to, like, say, as you can see here, 400%, and everything is still absolutely pin sharp. So yeah, really great use of that technology, I think. Let's go back to 100%. So yeah, that's it really. That's the overview for Amiga PCB Explorer. Fantastic tool, and definitely one you need to basically grab hold of and use if you've got any problem with your A500, your Amiga 4000, what was on that list as well, the 1200. Anything on that list and you're in luck, because this is a fantastic tool. Definitely worth learning how to use if you have an issue. So there we go, PCB Explorer. It's quite a simple little web app. I'm not saying it's simple to code. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of work in producing it. I mean, in terms of using it, there's not that much there to it really, but my God, is it useful. It's okay to look at paper schematics, but the problem with the paper schematic is the very act of just finding out number one, which is the chip that you're meant to be looking at. They're very often done in an abstract diagrammatical way where they're not actually laid out like you would actually see the PCB. And it's so much easier to actually see the PCB in front of you, look at the diagram on your, say, your laptop, and see the chip, and then to actually look at each pin and then work out how that chip works and how it then connects to the other chips around it by selecting them and seeing the way that they all connect together. You know, the way that it goes underneath the PCB shows you how a connection will go through a via, go underneath the board and then come back out again is also invaluable because honestly, it takes like a single click to find that on PCB Explorer. Whereas if you had to do that in the real world, it might take you 3 or 4 minutes to actually trace something. I mean, some of these traces are really small. So, you know, you've got to trace them across the motherboard, see where they actually reach a via, go through the via, work out where there is on the back of the board, which sometimes is quite hard to do, you know, looking back and forth between the two sides. And then when you found it on the back of the board, you're then got to start again. You've got to work out where it goes, and then it might go through another via. And as we saw, some of those connections actually sometimes go to the bottom of the board, to the top, to the bottom, to the top, several times, just to get to their final destination. And some of these also split as well, and that may not be obvious. So yeah, honestly, if you've got an Amiga 500 or 4000 or any of the others that this tool supports, and it has an issue, this is the tool for you. So yeah, that's it for this video. Pretty short and sweet. I hope you liked it. Please click the like button if you did. And obviously, if you enjoyed it and you would like to see more of the same, then please subscribe to the channel, because when you subscribe, that really helps the channel to grow. And obviously liking the video means it'll be recommended to other people who've got similar problems, you know, coming here to look at this tool. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you in future videos. Yeah, hopefully catch you then.